this week, this last week, Vanessa was in Madrid. I don't know now, but she was heading to Madrid from Toledo. So probably she's still there. So, well, people who, that's why we said the other day, Alicia, here we were Teresa, Claudia, and I. And so we said, we are the only three who stayed in Buenos Aires.
Oh, well.
Because all the others were going somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Good for you. Well, we were talking about Flaubert and his book, yes, about Saint Antoine. And imagine for the other soldiers, no, to ask for a book in French about a
In French.
So, what the hell? Who's Antoine? Gee whiz, I bet that's hot stuff. I wish I could read French. We'll have your breaking loose out of here and going down to number 4 Rue Villette if you read that kind of book. Has it got pictures? Asked Applebaum. So, yeah, Clara, a book with pictures. One feller did break out here a month ago. Couldn't stand it. I'm sorry. There is a voice here, but I don't know what it is. Could it be something? No.
Now it stops.
Okay. Can you see the page now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. One fellow did break out of here a month ago. Couldn't stand it any longer, I guess. Well, his wound opened and he had hemorrhage, and now he's planted out in the back lot. But I'm going. Good night. So the first time that somebody tells Andrew that one of them escaped, deserted, let's say, is this time Applebaum tells him about a fellow who broke out, but then his wound was opened again and he had to come back, no? But this is important because Andrew started to hear about people who deserted. The lights went out, yes, and what's that book about, buddy? Asked Applebaum. Oh, it's about a man who wants everything so badly that he decides there's nothing worth wanting. What a definition, no? A man who wants everything so badly that he decides there's nothing worth wanting. Yes. So Faustus' story is also like this, no? Dr. Faustus, where he wants everything and he sells his soul to Mephistopheles, no? But then everything that he is offered, even women like the Queen of Sheba, is, I mean, nothing to him. He realizes that nothing is so important as to give away your soul, no? I guess you had a college education, said Applebaum sarcastically. Andrews laughed. Well, I was going to tell you about when I used to drive a taxi. I was making big money when I enlisted. Was you drafted? Yes. Well, so was I. I don't think nothing of them guys that are so stuck up cause they enlisted, do you? Not a hell of a lot. So the ones who enlisted, I mean, who went in voluntarily, were not the ones who were stuck up there. Yes, those are the ones that were drafted, los que eran obligados, like him. Don't you? Came a voice from the other side of Andrews, a thin voice that stuttered. Well, all I can say, it'll have spoiled my business if I hadn't enlisted. No, sir, nobody can say I didn't enlist. Well, that's your lookout, said Applebaum. You're good and right, it was. Well, ain't your business spoiled anyway? No, sir, I can pick it right up where I left off. I've got an established reputation. What at? I'm an undertaker by profession. So, the other man, there are three. The other man who was there is an undertaker. And so,
my dad was before me.
And so, of course, he can pick it right up when he goes back. because his business
Yes.
will never finish. You understand,
Yes.
Marina, what an undertaker is?
No, not much.
An undertaker es el que tiene una casa de sepelios.
Claro, el que arregla los
Funebrero.
muertos para
Funebrero.
Un funebrero. Entonces, por
funebrero,
eso,
ahí está,
ese se
funebrero.
enlistó solo, a ese no lo metieron de prepo, ese se enlistó porque total su negocio va a continuar cuando él vuelva. So Andrew says, you were right at home. You were right at home. Yes. You haven't any right to say that, young fellow, said the undertaker angrily. I'm a humane man. I won't never be at home in this dirty butchery. The nurse was walking by their cots. How can you say such dreadful things, she said. But lights are out. You boys have got to keep quiet. And you, she plucked at the undertaker's bedclothes. Just remember what the Huns did in Belgium. Poor Miss Cavell, a nurse just like I am. So the undertaker is silenced by the nurse, yes? Well, and when the nurse is there, look at Andrews, he thinks, and I thought she was the Queen of Sheba, he said to himself, making a grimace in the dark. Then he began to think of the music he had intended to write about the Queen of Sheba, before he had stripped his life off in the bare room where they had measured him and made a soldier of him. Standing in the dark in the desert of his despair. Look at this phrase, no? Standing in the dark in the desert of his despair. He would hear the sound of a caravan in the distance, tinkle of bridles, rasping of horns, braying of donkeys, in the throaty voice of men singing the songs of desolate roads. He would look up, and before him he would see, astride their foaming wild asses, the three green horsemen motionless, pointing at him with their long forefingers. Then the music would burst in a sudden hot whirlwind about him, full of flutes and kettle drums and brain horns and whining bagpipes, and torches would flare red and yellow, making a tent of light about him, on the edges of which would crowd the sumpter mules and the brown mule drivers, and the gaudily caparisoned camels, and the elephants glistening with jeweled harness. So this is his imagination about this opera, yes, with all the colors and the animals and all the instruments, yes, full of colors and lights, yes, so a wonderful spectacle, yes, so he's dreaming about his opera. Naked slaves would bend their gleaming backs before him as they laid out a carpet at his feet, and through the flare of torchlight, the Queen of Sheba would advance towards him, covered with emeralds and dull gold ornaments, with a monkey hopping behind, holding up end of her long train. She would put her hand with its slim, fantastic nails on his shoulder, and looking into her eyes, he would suddenly feel within reach all the fiery imaginings of his desire. Oh, if he could only be free to work. So he imagines all the music and the spectacle and everything, and he wants to be free to work, to create this. All the months he had wasted in his life seemed to be marching like a procession of ghosts before his eyes. So he worries, he laments all the months he has lost, like a slave. Well, in the next section, we have again Applebaum, and he says, so you really are going, said Andrews. You bet your
Applebaum is a taxi driver.
The taxi driver, yes. I bet your pants I am, Andy, and so could you perfectly well if you'll talk it up to them a little. Oh, I wish to God I could. Not that I want to go home now, but if I could get out of uniform. So Applebaum is sent back home because he had lost an arm, remember?
Yes.
I don't blame you a bit, kid. Well, next time we'll know better. Local board chairman's going to be my job. So now he knows that he's going to be here. I mean, he desires, he wants to be a chairman, you understand, a member of the council. Not a taxi driver, because he cannot drive anymore. Andrews laughed. If I wasn't a sucker, you weren't the only wee one, came the Undertaker's stuttering voice from behind Andrews. Hell, I thought you enlisted, Undertaker. Well, I did, by God, but I didn't think it was going to be like this. So you have the two types of soldiers, the one who was drafted, like Andrews and like Applebaum, who didn't want to be there, etc., but also the one who enlisted voluntarily, the Undertaker, is, unhappy because he didn't think it was going to be like this. What did you think it was going to be? A picnic? Yes, always the image of the picnic in opposition to the war, yes?
Yes.
Hell, I don't care about that or getting gassed and smashed up or anything, but I thought we was going to put things right by coming here. So he enlisted because he thought they were going to do something good for the world. Look here, I had a lively business in the undertaking way, like my father had before me. We did all the swellest work in Tillsville. Where? Interrupted Applebaum, laughing. Tilletsville. Don't you know any geography? Go ahead, tell us about Tilletsville, said Andrews soothingly. Why, when Senator Wallace deceased there, who do you think had charge of embalming the body and taking it to the station? So the Undertaker is proud of his job, yes? But there I went like a sucker and enlisted in the infantry too. So he repents, yes, of his having enlisted. But hell, everybody was saying that we was going to fight to make the world safe for democracy. This was, the slogan. And that if a fellow didn't go, no one will trade with him anymore. So the Undertaker enlisted because he wanted also to keep his job, yes? To have a good reputation, let's say. He started coughing suddenly and seemed unable to stop. At last he said weakly in a thin little voice between coughs, well, here I am. There ain't nothing to do about it. Democracy, that's democracy, ain't it? We eat stinking goulash and that their fat white woman goes out with colonels eating chocolate souffle. Perfect democracy. But I tell you what, it don't do to be the goat. So, talking about democracy, yes, the difference between officers and soldiers, yes, they had to eat that stinking goulash, see, un guiso con olor, but the others eat chocolate souffle. No, so the
democracy, Inés.
that is democracy. Yes, like the famous phrase, some are more equal than others. We are all equals, but some are more equal than others. Yes, you remember that phrase.
Yes.
So, but there are so damn many more goats than anything else, said Andrews. There's a sucker born every minute, as Barnum said. You understand?
Ask a question.
Yes.
I'm not sure, but maybe the soldier who left an arm or his legs receive money or
A pension.
any kind of indemnization at that time.
I don't know in the First World War. In the second, they
No, in the second I know, but in the first one,
I don't know.
No, I don't know. No,
I don't know.
They should receive some pension, but I have to check it.
Yes, I don't know.
I'll check it.
This man says that he was going back to his place and that he wants to be a politician, but as a joke, no? So it's part of a joke. But he never mentions that he's going to get a pension. That is not mentioned anywhere.
not for for everyone, but just for people who
Yes,
lost a part of their body or
yes,
something.
like this one, like the
Yes.
taxi driver. Well, I don't know. He doesn't say anything about that, so I don't know if that was established at this time.
I
No.
will find it.
Okay, okay, Malena
Mhm.
will do the research.
Okay.
Okay.
So, well, there's a sucker born, well, you know the word sucker. Sucker is una mala palabra, es como decir
Sí, un insulto.
un insulto, sí, es una mala persona, ¿sí? So there's a sucker born every minute, as Barnum said. You learn that driving a taxi cab if you don't learn nothing else. No, sir, I'm going into politics. I've got good connections up 125th Street way. You see, I've got an aunt, Mrs. Sally Schultz, owns a hotel on 133rd Street. Heard of Jim O'Ryan, ain't you? Well, he's a good friend of hers, see, being as they are both Catholics. But I'm going out this afternoon, see what the town's like, and all four says the skirts are just peaches and cream. So the taxi driver is going to leave the hospital, yes, and before he's going to try women at the town, no? I wish I were going with you. This is Andrews. You'll get well plenty soon enough, Andy, and get yourself marked Class A and get given a gun and over the top, boys, to see if the Fritzes won't make a better shot next time. Talk about suckers. You are the most perfect sucker I ever met. What did you want to tell the loot your legs didn't hurt bad for? They'll have you out of here before you know it. Well, I'm going out to see what the mademoiselles look like. So Applebaum tells Andrews that he should exaggerate the pain, to tell the nurses and the doctors that he suffers a lot, etc., so that they can send him back home. And but of course, Andrews doesn't do this. Applebaum, the uniform hanging in folds about his skinny body, swaggered to the door, followed by the envious glances of the whole world. Guess he thinks he's going to get to be a president, said the undertaker bitterly. He probably will, said Andrews. He settled himself in bed again, sinking back into the dull contemplation of the teasing, smarting pain where the torn ligaments of his thighs were slowly knitting themselves together. He tried desperately to forget the pain. There was so much he wanted to think out. So he wants to think, he wants to evade the situation. So all the time, he tries to think of different things, yes? Soon as Applebaum said, they'd be putting him in Class A and sending him back to the treadmill. And he would not have reconquered his courage, his dominion over himself. What a coward he had been anyway to submit. The man beside him kept coughing. In connection with this coughing and coughing, then later on we learned that the undertaker had got tuberculosis. And I sent you in that information about this battle. It also said that many men died of the flu because it was
Fue la gripe española esa.
Claro, la gripe española.
La gripe española, claro.
Claro.
Que la llevaron desde Estados Unidos, apparently.
Claro, por eso este está enfermo, ¿sí? So, a lot of soldiers died, but many of them also died of this flu.
Yes, yes.
Which killed a lot of people.
Terrible.
Yes.
Spanish flu.
The Spanish flu, and later on you see that the undertaker says that he's got TB, no? The phrase came to Andrew's mind amid an avalanche of popular tunes, of visions of patriotic numbers on the vaudeville stage. He remembered the great flags waving triumphantly over Fifth Avenue and the crowds dutifully cheering, but those were valid reasons for the undertaker. But for him, John Andrews, were they valid reasons? No. He had no trade. He had not been driven into the army by the force of public opinion. He had not been carried away by any wave of blind confidence in the phrases of both propagandists. He had not had the strength to live. The thought came to him of all those who, down the long tragedy of history, had given himself smilingly for the integrity of their thoughts. So Andrews doesn't repent like Applebaum or like the Undertaker. He repents because he hasn't been brave enough to say, I don't go to the war. And so he thinks of all the men who had before fought for their freedom, yes, and defended their ideals. He had not had the courage to move a muscle for his freedom, but he had been fairly cheerful about risking his life as a soldier in a cause he believed useless. What right had a man to exist who was too cowardly to stand up for what he thought and felt, for his whole makeup, for everything that made him an individual apart from his fellows, and not a slave to stand cap in hand waiting for someone of stronger will to tell him to act? So you see his doubts, his questions are very, very philosophical, yes? Because he felt he didn't have the courage to say, no, I'm not going to the war, yes? And he did not defend his ideals. Like a sudden nausea, disgust surged up in him. His mind ceased formulating phrases and thoughts. He gave himself over to disgust as a man who has drank a great deal, holding on tight to the reins of his will, suddenly gives himself over pell-mell to drunkenness. He lay very still with his eyes closed, listening to the stir of the world, the voices of men talking and the fits of coughing that shook the man next him. The smarting pain throbbed monotonously. He felt hungry and wondered vaguely if it were supper time. How little they gave you to eat in the hospital. So everything, I mean, he's suffering very much from the pain, from his own cowardice, as he says. He felt he was a coward. And now, I mean, he couldn't eat enough. Everything is wrong. Well, after he had eaten, he picked up the Temptation de Saint Antoine that lay on the cot beside his immovable legs and buried himself in it, reading the gorgeously modulated sentences voraciously, as if the book were a drug in which he could drink deep forgetfulness of himself. When he tried to seize hold of his thoughts, to give them definite musical expression in his mind, he found himself suddenly empty. The way a sandy inlet on the beach that has been full of shoals of silver fishes becomes suddenly empty when a shadow crosses the water, and the man who is watching sees only his own reflection instead of the flickering of thousands of tiny silver bodies. John Andrews awoke to feel a cold hand on his head. "Feeling all right," said a voice in his ear. He found himself looking in a puffy middle-aged face with a lean nose and gray eyes with dark rings under them. Andrews felt the eyes looking him over inquisitively. He saw the red triangle on the man's khaki sleeve. "Yes," he said, "if you don't mind, I'd like to talk to you a little while, buddy." So you see, the Y man, the man from the YMCA, comes to talk to the wounded, yes? But of course, Andrews is not interested. And so he says—
Is he a voluntary man that help people in the hospital?
Yes, but also a member of this Christian association, yes? They come
Yes.
to give them, to speak to them, yes? The man says, "You seem pretty spry. I guess you are in a hurry to get back at the front and get some more hands." So the man is trying to inspire the soldiers to go back to the battle, yes? Andrews did not answer. No, Sonny, I don't like it here, the white man said after a pause. I wish I was home, but it's great to feel you are doing your duty. It must be, said Andrews. Have you heard about the great air raids our boys have pulled off? They've bombarded Frankfurt. Now, if they could only wipe Berlin off the map. So this is interesting, no? Because the man brings information about the other parts of the war, saying that the Allies have bombarded Frankfurt and that they have to wipe off Berlin, no? But of course, this is information which has some, I mean, we doubt this information. And when he says that, Andrew says, do you hate them awful hard? And the white man says, some German prisoners come to this hospital at 6 every night to get the garbage. Now, all you need to do, if you really hate them so bad, is borrow a revolver from one of your officer friends and just shoot up the convoy.
I can hear you, Ines.
You cannot, yes, because my connection is not good. Can you hear me now?
Is okay.
Now it's better, but it is almost finishing the call.
Yes. Well,
Yes,
no,
don't worry, Ines, don't worry.
What I was saying was that